Hello, how's it going? Happy New Year. Now, if you're confused as to why I said that, because you're watching this in a few months' time, for example, it is the 1st of January 2025 as I'm recording this now. So, Happy New Year. I thought I'd do a part 2 of my favourite whiskey tasting video. Not that it did well. I did a part 1 a few months ago last year, and yes, it's been up for not too far off a year now, and there's been less than 100 views. So, the algorithm does not like, but I got to taste whiskey and eat cheese. The cheese, by the way, being a palate cleanser, so I'm not going to complain. And I thought I'd follow it up with a part 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, because I like whiskey. Anyway, in part 1, I'll put the link below in case you do want to watch it. I was comparing 2 of my very favourite single malts. Little bit of context, a little bit of backstory, although you'll get it on the first video, so if you haven't seen that, you should probably watch that. I love smoky, peaty whiskies, and 2 of my very favourite were Talisker Skye and Talisker Portree, both from the Isle of Skye, and Talisker Skye narrowly won out over Portree, which actually surprised me because Portree is more expensive, rarer, slightly more complex, a more complex flavour, and a little bit more special in that regard because it's more of an unknown, because the Skye, Talisker Skye itself, is the sort of flagship everyday model, if you like. However, I love the Skye, so here it is, the current champion, possibly my current favourite Scotch whisky. But I haven't tried them all. I probably never will try them all. There are hundreds of them, but anyway, and I've tried several actually that are just as good, and I would need to do a proper head-to-head. Longrow, for example, Lefroy. But at the moment this is the winner. This can be, the retail price is around about £50, but permanently on a deal in almost all supermarkets. If you've got like a loyalty thing, a reward card or whatever, you can get this for about £30. And at £30, this is about the best whiskey you can possibly buy, because it's almost, it's the same sort of price as an entry level really good whiskey like Jura, and it's very little more expensive than utter guff like Famous Grouse and Bells and all that rubbish. So Talisker Skye is an awesome whiskey. At 50, it's a relatively hard sell, but it's still nice. At 30, it's a no-brainer, and this stuff is amazing. Going up against it, we have Glen Turret Peat Smoked 10-year-old. Now, I've had this for several years. When Rachel and I got engaged, we got engaged in a place called Crieff. Now, that's not too far from where we live now, and also where I grew up, in Perthshire in Scotland. And I had no idea the Glen Turret distillery even existed. I took her to this beautiful park under a blossom tree where I proposed, and after she said yes. By the way, we're now married, although I'm not wearing my ring. I don't really wear it indoors, or at least at home. So after we got engaged, we were looking for somewhere to go and get a nice lunch, a nice coffee, etc. And we came out of the car park for this park, and if I turned right, it was towards the town where everything was, and I just, for some reason, had an inclination to turn left because I didn't know what was down there. And it was on the outskirts of the town, leaving the town. I didn't know, so I thought, I'll turn left and see what's there. And we saw a sign for a Glen Turret distillery. I'd never heard of it. So we went there, and it's got a beautiful cafe, really nice coffee, really great staff, and I highly recommend Glen Turret Distillery. Incidentally, the world record holder for a cat who's killed the most mice belongs to a cat that used to live in the distillery called Towser, and there's a statue to Towser outside, and it's something like 28,000 mice or something she killed over her lifetime. So there's that. Anyway, I got this when I got engaged. I haven't, I've had it for a few years. I don't really drink it very often. It's like a very special occasion whiskey. This is more expensive than that. This is the 2021 release. These are all gone now. So is the 22 release. I think the 23 releases are almost gone as well. 2024 releases can be had. They start at age 7. 7-year-old £62, and the 10-year-old is £67. So even at that, at full price, this is about £17 more than that. When you've got this on the deal that you get it every day in supermarkets, this is basically twice as much. At twice the price, no brainer, that wins. But this is a taste testing day. So peat smoked, very unusual for Glen Turret. Glen Turret in Crieff, as I said, the river there is non-peated. It's completely clear. Now, if you don't know what peat is, It's concentrated vegetable matter, and it flavours the rivers and the lakes, lochs, streams, etc. up in the north, especially northwest of Scotland. People burn peat for fuel, and it flavours, like I say, the water and therefore the whiskey. And I prefer peated whiskey to non-peated. This is normally non-peated, but they actually imported peated water to make this one, and any of their peat smoked ones. So the water has to come from elsewhere because the river they draw from is completely unpeated. Incidentally, this was never on my radar ever, the Glen Turret distillery, and it wouldn't be on the radar of basically any whiskey enthusiast, because up until recently, in the last few years, Glen Turret only made whiskey to use in blended malts, like, you know, Famous Grouse or whatever. So you wouldn't really use it as it's a nice occasional single malt. But they hired a master distiller, one of the best in the world, very recently. And sorry, that's a dog scratching on the door. And he was like, nope, we're going to make single malts. So that's what they're doing now. They make some really beautiful single malts. This is not as peated as that, but it is very nice, very high quality. You know, you'd expect it for that price. So we'll give this one a go as well. And finally, we have the most expensive whiskey of the day. This was recommended to me by a viewer on the last video. He commented on the last video saying you should try Lagavulin 16 because it's amazing. So I did. I got this for my Christmas just gone. I'd never tried Lagavulin 16 before, but I was on holiday last year. So after the video went up, the guy commented, try Lagavulin 16. Fair enough. I tried Lagavulin before, but not that old. And then my family and I were on holiday up in northeast coast of Scotland, a place called Helmsdale. And the pub sold Lagavulin 16 in drams. So we had a few drams of that, and it was beautiful. So I asked for it for my Christmas. This is retail price around about £80. So considerably more expensive than both of them. And it's not something I would regularly drink because of the price. But it is wonderful. Very heavily peated again, 16-year-old. This is from the island of Islay on the west coast. I've never been to Islay. Been to Skye many times because I adore it, but never been to Islay. These are Glencairn glasses. I explained in the first video as to why these are the best glasses to drink whiskey out of. There's proper science behind it. It's not just mumbo jumbo. Go and watch that if you want to know about it. But in short, these are the best way to taste whiskey. You also get a black one, which I got for Christmas from my wife. She just thought it was cool. But the purpose of it is when you're doing taste testing on whiskey, it's to mask the colour. You don't see the colour, therefore you don't have any preconceptions and therefore bias. I'm not a proper whiskey taster, obviously. I'm not really interested in hiding the colour. I think the colour is part of it. And I'm going to compare the colours now. So, the champion, the current leader, Talisker Skye. The cheapest one here. Not cheap at £50, but perfectly cheap. That's quite a lot considering I'm going to have 3 of them. Never mind. Perfectly cheap if you are getting it at the £29, £30 that is always available at normal supermarkets. And the Glen Turret, I'm going to go slightly easier with this one because this is a special one. This is our engagement one, as I said. Haven't had that for a while. Last April, I think, because April's anniversary. In fact, no, I had it at my wedding, but that was in the end of April anyway, so there we are. I said I was not going to have much. It's almost as much as the Skye. And the Lagavulin 16. Now, I expect this one to be the most peated, but I don't know for certain. I'm going to go easy on this one because it's bloody expensive. Right. So let's have a look. Skye's a darker, redder colour than the Glen Turret. I expected that because this is essentially lightly peated. They mixed peated water with non-peated water. I think. They might have used all peated water, but I don't think so. Incidentally, about the Glen Turret, it's the oldest still operating distillery in Scotland, Glen Turret, which is why it's even more surprising that they were making blends and not single malts until recently. They also, I believe it's the only one that still uses entirely old-fashioned ways of doing it. In other words, everything is manual. There's no computer control whatsoever, which I really like. Anyway, yeah, there's a little bit more sort of rich colour with the Skye. It's redder, it's darker. It's a prettier colour in my eyes, to my eyes. And then we have Lagavulin, which is also dark. It's brown, slightly darker than the Skye. I don't know if you can see that. Slightly redder again. It's not much between them though. Really not much between them. Now I've got my palate cleansing cheese. And I'm going to cleanse my palate straight off the bat, because if I have cheese before the other two, it might affect the flavour anyway. So I'm going to have a bit of cheese before this guy. Right, I had to pause the camera for a second to let the dog out because she was needing the toilet. Anyway, on to Talisker Skye. Every time I try a new whiskey and I really like it, like a new smoky whiskey, and I'm like, oh, that's really good. Maybe it's better than Skye, maybe it is. Come back to this again, and every time you're just like, man, does it get any better? You know, I love this stuff, it's so good. As I said on the previous video, not the most complex taste in the world, initially, although it's relatively complex. Not like the Portree before it, that I tested last time, but it has a long, lingering, very satisfying peaty, yet slightly sweet, mostly peaty aftertaste, and it's surprisingly smooth for a very, very peaty whiskey, and it is very peaty. Lefroy, for example, is about the same sort of peat level, maybe more, maybe less, I'm not sure, but it isn't as smooth as this. At least I don't think so. When do you compare them? That's really good. Really good. I'm back to work tomorrow. Cheesy palate cleanse, right? Glen Turret, 10-year-old peat smoked, 2021 release. I've got no reason to believe the 2024 is any different. Huh. Yeah. Peaty. Not as peaty as that. Maybe I'll try again, but yeah, I got a little bit more of that sort of ethyl alcohol tinge to it, more than that. That's not bad, you know, low quality stuff, cheap whiskies and bad vodka and stuff. You get this overpowering ethyl alcohol. Pretty sure it's ethanol, not methanol. Pretty sure it's ethanol. It is ethyl alcohol. Anyway, that overpowering sort of disgusting paint stripper ethyl alcohol flavors. Nothing like that. It's still smooth. Yeah, it's still smooth. Don't know if it's quite as smooth as that. Maybe it is. Maybe that's just masking the slightly ethanol flavour just because how peaty it is. This is less so. This is like in the middle between a what would you call it? Like a Speyside non-peated malt and a peated malt. Well, it's not from Speyside. It's what we'd probably class it as a lowland. It's funny, the people like to attach the word Highland to their products. So there's certain distilleries, Tullibardine, for example, says a pure drop of Highland Gold or something is their slogan. It's near Stirling. It's in the Lowlands, but anyway, Central Belt. Yeah, that's really, really nice. I think that's better. That's really good though. And if you were, for example, not as into your peated, and you found that the peated smoky whiskies are too much, but you liked a little bit of it, a little bit more complexity, that would be spot on. I don't know what the 7-year-olds like. I've never tasted the 7, I don't think. I did go to the bar there once for my parents' diamond anniversary or something, whatever it was called. But I was driving, so maybe I tested something, I can't remember. Initial flavour, not much to split. They're different, but they're not much to split in terms of my preference. The aftertaste is what wins that for me. The lingering peaty smoky aftertaste is just lovely on that. That less so. So although this is really good, I'd probably still rate it. The thing is, it's kind of irrelevant until you've got a big catalogue of ratings. And 5, I know like 5 sounds terrible, but I would rate 5 as absolutely average because it's supposed to be. But people have sort of moved over to 7 being an average or something when it comes to reviewing films and games and stuff. But this would probably be a solid 8, maybe 8.5. That's a 10. Right. And on to basically the main event, because let me really get rid of that. Because this is the expensive one. This is one I got for my Christmas from my wife. This one I was recommended to try. We opened it on Christmas Day myself, because my wife and I went through to my parents' house to stay over. So did my sister and brother-in-law. My dad, myself, and my brother-in-law had supposed to be 1 dram each. I think we had 2 drams each. I was shocked about how much we had. I woke up the next day and it was down to about there, or there somewhere. And it's not supposed to be a whiskey to be just wait, but anyway, we did. Lagavulin 16. Nice golden brown peaty colour. Pardon me, I ruined it by having a burp. Try again. None of that ethanol type flavour, type impression. Okay, let's try again. This was so much easier when we didn't have a dog. Right? Okay, Lagavulin 16. Established it has none of that ethanol-y impression that had. Wow. So what's surprising is the initial flavour, the initial hit is actually, I think, weaker than that. Maybe even that, although that's maybe not. But it's the lingering aftertaste that is really strong. Yeah, it's very warming. Very warm. I think it says on the bottle something about leaves the warmth and removes the fire or something. Takes out the fire but leaves the warmth. Yeah, so I can kind of get that. There is a peaty, fiery taste to it, but it sort of just has a warmth as it sort of ebbs away. Initial flavour, the initial taste is harsher. Yeah, the initial taste of the Skye is harsher than the Lagavulin 16, I think. Definitely harsher. Yeah, it is. It'll be because now Skye isn't aged. It doesn't tell you what the age is in the bottle. But almost certainly it's younger than, it is younger than the 16-year-old Lagavulin. So that's not surprising. You can tell it's a younger whiskey, because that initial flavour hit is not as sophisticated as that. It's not as smooth as that. That's super smooth. But the flavour is less potent. There's less of it. It's a weaker flavour. I'm not saying it's a worse flavour, but it isn't as much of a hit. Yeah, smooth all the way through. From the first taste to the aftertaste and the lingering warmth and the peatiness, it's completely smooth. Not the smoothest whiskey I've ever tasted. That'd be the Octomore, but the Octomore is £190 a bottle. So let's not bother with that. It's funny that having drunk that seems almost harsh, but it's not. It's really smooth. I wonder if I go from this to this. Yeah. Glen Turret is a really nice whiskey. Really nice whiskey. But without a palate cleanser, it just seems so harsh compared to that. So harsh. Smoothest by far, I think. Pretty sure. But is it my favourite? That's the question. This, I like it. This is not my favourite. The Skye beats that. So, Glen Turret, fair enough. I'll finish that off camera because don't waste good whiskey, and it is good whiskey. Again, if you aren't as keen on heavily peated whiskies and you want something slightly peated, the Glen Turret, that's your dram. Now for these two, how do I decide? Initial flavours very smooth but weak. Not weak, weaker. Really lovely lingering aftertaste. Really smooth, peaty sensation. Good. That's really good. Really good. You can tell this is the highest quality. You can tell that. There's no trace of this ethanol-y, alcohol-y taste. None of it. It's not complex at all, but it's satisfying. Going from one whiskey to another without palate cleanser ruins it. It's horrible. It really is. If you've ever emptied a glass and poured a different whiskey into the same glass, you'll know what I mean. It completely ruins it. And that's not just stuck up, toffee-nosed, stiff upper lip nonsense. I say stiff upper lip's not a bad thing, that's just being proper, but toffee-nosed nonsense. If you even not mixed the whiskies, but just poured it in the same glass, you'll know it's terrible. So we've really got to make sure it got a palate cleanser in. Sweeter than that. Tough, very tough. It's so hard to tell. It almost seems sweet compared to that now. So good though. So good. Let me try one more. I'm a Scotsman, I can handle it. Don't worry about it. think I'm going to have to give it to Talisker Skye. This has one of the nicest lingering aftertastes ever. The initial taste isn't as potent, but the lingering aftertaste is wonderful. But that is as well, and it's, well, even at retail it's £30 cheaper. But at the sort of price you can regularly get it for, it's £50 cheaper. You know what it is? That thing they were talking about takes out the fire but leaves the warmth. It absolutely does. There's no, well, there's not no, there's less of that fire than that. It's just this warm, lingering, beautiful, peaty taste. But I like the fire. I really like the fire. That's an amazing whiskey. But that is so much cheaper, and it's not as old, it's aged, not as aged. Doesn't have the same smoothness, so the quality isn't quite as high, but it's infinitely satisfying. Until you do that and don't have a palate cleanser. That is so tough. That's a 10 out of 10 whiskey for me, because I love peated whiskey, smoky whiskey. That's a 10 out of 10 whiskey. But that's a 10 out of 10 whiskey at a retail price of £80. This is a 10 out of 10 whiskey with a retail price of £50, but a genuine regular, not even on special offer, a regular sort of club card, loyalty card price of £30. You can almost, not quite, but almost get 3 bottles of this for one of this. I think, as much as this, I adore it. It's so special. It's so special. I still think my favourite whiskey is this. I still think my favourite whiskey is Skye. Yes, I'm having more. Yes, I'm working tomorrow. I'm Scottish, don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's sweeter. Now, I never would have expected to say that, because Skye is not sweet at all. Sweeter than that. I don't like sweet whiskies, but it's not overly sweet. The initial taste just doesn't have that impact. Then you've got that beautiful, lingering, fades out, warmth, satisfying, peaty. Oh, it's beautiful. It really is. Oh man, that bit. But the Lagavulin lingers so long that 30 seconds later you're still, that's good. This is a better quality dram. Definitely a better quality dram. There is something, let's see if I can find it. Non-chill filtered is what I'm looking for. Doesn't say. Non-chill filtered is technically the better way of making whiskey. Well, it's the more expensive way of making whiskey. Talisker is not non-chill filtered. In other words, it's chill filtered. Something like the Long Row is non-chill filtered. So, you know, the potential is there to be better. But I don't know. This is a 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10. I can't pick, really. The initial flavour of this is stronger, more impactful, more memorable. The lingering aftertaste is very strong, but the lingering aftertaste on this is way more focused. It's a very focused, distinct peaty flavour. So the aftertaste on this is slightly complex. This is very one-track minded, tunnel vision, the peaty warmth, and that's it. It's beautiful. They're both 10 out of 10. I forgot to mention the alcohol content. This is something. This is 45.8, 46%. The Lagavulin, 43. They're not quite as alcoholic as the Talisker. The Glen Turret is 50, so that's the strongest. That will probably be why it has the more ethanol impression. All three are really, really bloody good. Really good. I think I'm going to give the nod to the Skye because it is vastly cheaper than the Lagavulin. It's probably more drinkable more of the time. Just, oh, knock it back, it's fine, you know what I mean? It can be a special occasion whiskey. It can be a special occasion whiskey because it is that good. It's good enough to be a special occasion whiskey. Someone's graduated, someone's got married, someone's got engaged, someone's passed a driving test, someone's retired. It's good enough for that. But at the same time, it's good enough, it's cheap enough rather to just, yeah, let's get some whiskey, knock it back and have a good time. This one, you know, millionaires exist, they'll knock it back and have a good time. For most people, this is way more of a special occasion whiskey. It's beautiful, it's a 10 out of 10, that's a 10 out of 10. I probably would enjoy this more of the time. I'm going to have to give it to the Talisker Skye and the Talisker Skye. And there's more of it, look. But the quality is lower. The quality is definitely lower. You can taste how it's younger. You can, absolutely. And look, I've got some Glen Turret left too. Right. All are great. 10, 8.5, 10. You can't go wrong with any. If you are less inclined to go for peated stuff, the Glen Turret might be your one. It's slightly peated, but not too heavily. That's heavily. That's heavily. Skye, Lagavulin, Glen Turret. This might be your 10 out of 10. For me, I like peated. So, Talisker Skye has defeated, and I'm surprised. I was surprised by it beating the portrait. I'm very surprised that I prefer it. I don't prefer it. I have it on equal footing to the Lagavulin 16. So I'm very surprised by that. Because I expected the Lagavulin to dethrone it, because it's just that much more sophisticated, that much more expensive, that much older, more mature. Like, well, like, your taste may differ. Okay, I'm really hoping all of that footage at the end there was fine, because my GoPro Hero 8 Black overheats, and when it does, it scrambles the footage sometimes, and it did overheat and shut down, so we'll see, fingers crossed. Anyway, the conclusion was Skye's a winner because Lagavulin's that much more expensive. The Lagavulin 16 is that much more expensive. But I thought I'd give you a little bonus bit of footage as well, because our next door neighbours are lovely. They're really nice people, and they got us some alcohol for Christmas, just gone. But they don't know their whiskies at all. So they got me this. Buffalo Trace Kentucky bourbon whiskey, American whiskey. I'm sure it's perfectly good with a mixer. However, my father, myself, and my brother-in-law tried it on Christmas Day, and we found it to be utterly bouf, which is a Scottish word for minging, which is a British word for really not very good at all. And for your enjoyment, I'm going to try it again now. I'm sure it's perfectly great with some ginger beer in it or something, but straight. The ethanol I talked about before, the low quality ethanol I taste. I was surprised because although I'm obviously not a bourbon drinker, I expected it to be sweeter and more ethanol-y than Scotch, which it is, but I didn't expect it to be that ethanol-y. It is, I mean, the stuff I kept samples that I dyed in uni smelt like this tastes. You know what I mean? When I did my dissertation. Oh, so sweet. Oh, so sweet. Oh, actually, I'm surprisingly not overwhelmed by the ethanol flavour. I was. Oh, I am now. Wait a minute. It's like fruit pastels. It's so sweet. Like I said, with a mixer, I'm sure it's fine. It'll be great. But yeah, it's like a pudding. Right, so yeah, it's got that ethanol taste, more so than, well, obviously the Lagavulin and the Skye, but also more so than the Glen Turret. Very ethanol-y, almost that sort of low quality ethanol air about it, which surprised me because they bang on about quality and age and all the rest of it. Sure, why not? Now, I understand that taste is taste and it's personal and it's subjective. You know, you may prefer the taste of bourbon, you may prefer the taste of Scotch. Fair enough. But what isn't subjective, what's utterly objective, is quality. And that ethanol-y, sort of overwhelming chemically, alcohol-y taste, which you associate with low quality stuff and vodka and stuff like that, or low quality vodka. So the only way I can put it to people who don't drink whiskey is, this is like, well, rather the Lagavulin in the Skye is like a very beautiful Italian hand-picked espresso, and this is like instant coffee from the supermarket. You know what I mean? It's not terrible, but there's no comparison in quality. I'm going to add some ginger beer and I'm sure I'll have a good time. It's certainly sweet enough. Right, this is not a Glencairn glass, but it's still a good glass. This is about as good as you can get until you get one of these. It doesn't matter in this case. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Take care and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.